concert. It's very special.
We've got an announcement.
1958, 7 Cantonese operatic legends.
I put this on too early.
Fong Yin Feng, Mak Ping Wing, Tam Sin Hong, Hao Fei Fan, Tang Pek Wan, and Lan Xing Po, accompanied by 2 orchestras led by Lo Ka Chi and Wen Chi Chung, performed in the Cantonese Opera Stars Gala, a special feature celebrating 30 years of broadcasting. Join us in Concert Hall Classics, RTHK's treasured recordings of live performances, to enjoy this valuable archived performance. This
Oh,
Saturday
you
at
reminded
8
me.
p.m.
I don't know if you
right
can you hear
here
me?
on Radio 4.
She can't hear me. Got the headphones on.
A concert that we hope you can tune in to. And right now the time is 32 minutes past 8, and here in the studio is film critic Howard Elias. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I did mention earlier what you were going to tell us about this week. First Man, the Neil Armstrong biopic, and then we have the film Distinction, a Hong Kong film, and then also just one.
Yeah, we're going to talk about
Tokyo,
one.
303 or 303. Yeah.
303.
303.
Well, I guess you can say 303. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you what it means later on.
Okay, so
Yeah, we'll go in that
start with,
order.
First Man.
So you say biopic? I say biopic.
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 Mm-hmm.
But it's bio. It's a biography picture. So it's a biopic.
Biopic.
Potato, potato.
Look it up on Forvo in a minute.
Okay, no
Probably
problem. All right. So
a Canadian-British thing.
maybe,
I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
I don't know.
Whatever.
So
We'll find out soon. Just
all right. I'm at the age where I remember the moon landing. Do you remember the moon landing? You were.
oh yes, I watched it.
Yeah. Well, my parents took me down to City Hall in Toronto, where thousands of people gathered to watch it on a big screen in Nathan Phillips Square. Anybody who knows Toronto knows exactly what I'm talking about. But unfortunately, I was at that age where I was too short to see over people's shoulders, but too tall to be on my father's shoulders. So I was quite frustrated. I do remember kicking a few people in the shins to get them to move, but to no avail. And my parents thankfully realized I was getting bored, and they took me to a friends of theirs home where they had color TV, and it was the first time I had ever watched color TV. You know, people who are of a different generation think we've had color TV forever, but we haven't.
No, I grew up on black and white.
Yeah, black and white. Yeah,
I think I was in my 20s when I first watched color TV.
Well, I think
it was around, but we didn't have one.
Yeah, well, I think that night probably spurred my parents to buy a color TV, because a few months later we did get one. But that was I still remember that was the first time I saw color TV. Anyhow, we're talking about the film First Man, which is about the moon landing, Neil Armstrong's first step for what is it? A small step for mankind.
It is a
small step for man, a giant leap for mankind.
Yeah, that's it. One small step.
For
one small step for mankind, one giant. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Yes.
Yes.
When we were younger, we knew that off by heart, but now we're old and our brain cells aren't as good as they used to be. So this is, this stars the prettier Canadian Ryan by the name of Ryan Gosling. You know, we have the 2 Canadian Ryans, and he's teamed up again with Damien Chazelle. The 2 of them worked together in La La Land, and of course Damien Chazelle also made the wonderful film Whiplash. And this is not it's not really I don't want to say it's not a flag-waving patriotic film, because it is a patriotic film, but it's not it's not like The Right Stuff. It's not like, you know, these other Apollo 11, you know, the Tom Hanks film. It's a little bit more subtle, and to its credit.
I thought it was supposed to be more, not necessarily even about the first step on the moon, but about his life.
Correct.
And what was going on at the time.
Correct, yeah. It's based on a 2005 book called First Man, The Life of Neil A. Armstrong by James R. Hansen. And you're right, the focus is on Neil and on his relationship with his wife Janet, played by the wonderful Claire Foy from TV's The Crown, and their children, and his early days at NASA. He started off as a test pilot, and he joined the NASA program. They didn't recruit him; he went to them, and all the trials and the tribulations it was basically experimentation. They didn't know what they were doing. I suppose in one respect they did know what they were doing, but it was all uncharted territory, to get to the moon, because President John F. Kennedy said, "We're not going to get to the moon because it's easy," or something like that. They do put that quote in. We do things because they're difficult, something along those lines, and unfortunately, you do see people getting killed along the way. And for Janet Armstrong, Neil's wife, she was terrified that one day she'll get the phone call that he's not coming home, because everybody around them was dying, basically. So that's why I say it's not flag waving, but it is patriotic. It really shows the right stuff. How heroic he was, but he was very, I hate to use reluctant, because everybody uses that word, so I'll use the word reticent. He wasn't that kind of person. He was a very quiet guy, very introspective. He kept his emotions to himself. He kept them really in check, drove her crazy because of that. In fact, the night before that he went off back to NASA before the moonshot, he had to go probably a few weeks before the moonshot, because they had to do all sorts of tests on him. And so the night before, as he's packing up, she says to him, "Aren't you going to talk to your boys? You might not ever come back." And he's like, "Yeah, whatever." That wasn't his style. And she really blasted him, and we see this in the movie, that you need to have a sit down talk with your boys, and prepare them for what is a very real possibility. So he's a very interesting person. Neil Armstrong was a person. And what I love about this film is that Gosling, he plays Armstrong very understated. He doesn't. He's not showy at all. The actor isn't showy and the character's not showy. So he does it really, really well. And unlike his fellow Apollo 11 astronaut Buzz Aldrin, who's played by Corey Stoll, who Buzz Aldrin, even today at age 88, he's still around. He still doesn't know when to shut up. He was in the press even a few weeks ago over this film. And there's one scene in this film where he says something, and Neil says something to him that he says, you don't always have to say what's on your mind. So it's at age 88, he still hasn't changed. But Armstrong, as I said, he was the type of guy, he liked to avoid the spotlight. He saw his work as akin to solving a puzzle. And in fact, when he was on the Gemini 8 space mission, and it was headed for disaster, he kept his cool. He pulled out his clipboard and his pen and his paper, and he's trying to figure out how to get out of what could have been a fatal mission, and he saved the mission. And in fact, he was recognized later on as being the reason why the mission didn't end up in failure. So he, again, special guy. Now, interestingly, it's not in the movie, but Janet, his wife, divorced him after 38 years of marriage. So I think after 38 years, she just said, "I can't take this anymore." Being the kind of person that he is. So I rarely mention music in my reviews. If Leanne were here, I'm sure she'd ask me about the music, and so I have to prepare whenever Leanne is here. But I have to say the music in this film is fabulous. It's by Oscar-winning composer Justin Hurwitz, who also worked with Chazelle in other films. And this film, his music is sometimes it's haunting and sometimes it's turbulent. It plays so well to what you're seeing on the screen. So I'm sure he's going to get nominated for an Oscar. So I'd say I really enjoyed this film. It's one of the best films I've seen so far this year. Thankfully, we haven't seen a lot of good films so far this year, but they're coming, because last night I saw A Star is Born, which I'm going to talk about next week. And so I would say, whether you take a small step or a giant leap to get to the cinema, go do it, because you're laughing. It's a must-see film. So First Man, highly recommended.
And next.
Okay.
Local film.
Local film distinction. Now, this film I saw a couple months ago because it played at the Hong Kong International Children's Festival. I think that's what it's called. And it was supposed to be released a few months later, a few months ago, and then they held it back, and they kept holding it back, holding it back. So it's finally opening today. In Cantonese, it's Fei Tong Fan Heng. I don't know what tone that is, but it means extraordinary. And it's director Jevons Au's solo feature debut, because he's done a few films, but he's worked with other people in the past. This one he's on his own. He's the guy who did the wonderful film 10 Years from a couple of years ago, which has got him banned or blacklisted on the mainland because they didn't like that film, and of course it won lots of awards, which angered the powers that be up north even more. So this film is less controversial, but it still focuses on a couple of our city's social problems. So he's a kind of director who focuses and tackles social issues. Now in this film we have Grace, who's played by actress singer Jo Koo. She's an SEN teacher. You know what SEN is? Special Education Needs, yeah. SEN teacher in Hong Kong. And it's far from being an easy job, as her students need a lot of hand-holding, and quite often so do the parents. You have some parents who've just thrown in the towel over the children, and other parents who don't want to recognize that their children have limitations. I don't want to say disabilities. They have limitations. And so she's got to deal with both types of parents. But it's the end of the school year, and she's decided she wants to mount a musical production where her students can show off their abilities rather than their disabilities. You're starting to cry already. Now, to help her, a group of high school students from a nearby Band 1 school. Now, if you're not from Hong Kong, Band 1 is the elite schools, the elite local schools. So a group of high school girls from a nearby Band 1 school, they offer their support because they need it for their university applications. Yeah, you're making a face,
Extra credit.
Extra credit. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And but very quickly, with the exception of one girl named Zoe, played by Jennifer Yu, who we saw in Man on the Dragon, a completely different character. I didn't even realize it was the same actress. So with the exception of Zoe, all the girls drop off right away because they just don't want to deal with the harsh realities of life, let's call it that. But Zoe sticks with it because she marches to the beat of a different drum. She's a talented and creative artist, but her work is unfortunately demeaned by both her art teacher and her mother because it's different, and they want her to be the same as everybody else. And people in Hong Kong, or people who know the Hong Kong education system, know that this causes problem. This is one of the problems of our schools here, and quite often it results in suicide, sadly. Now, Grace, the teacher, she also gets support from an enlightened colleague at a nearby Band 3 school, who in turn recruits a student named Kaho, played by Kaki Sham, who was in Weeds on Fire. And he tells Kako, you need to participate in this extracurricular activity, or you're going to get kicked out of school because you're not a good kid. You're in a bad school and you're a bad kid. So Kaho decides, okay, he's going to do it. And rather surprisingly, he finds his voice in the project. He ends up becoming the group's official photographer. And he also discovers compassion for his younger brother, Kalong, who just so happens to be a student in this class. Oh. Now, Kalong is played by amateur actor Jia Kalong. He was actually at my screening. I wanted to go up and hug him afterwards because he was wonderful. Now, at the risk of coming across as cold-hearted, which you said I was stone-hearted, cold-hearted. Heart of Stone. I was disappointed with this movie. Yeah, I know.
How did you not like this film?
Okay, look, I can appreciate the director's attempt to shine a spotlight on our government and our neighbors, for that matter, on our hesitance to embrace inclusion. But he and his co-writers have gone about it in such a very superficial way because every character is a cardboard cutout. That there's no nuance here. And each one suddenly has this epiphanic moment where they realize, the light bulb turns on. It doesn't work that way, right? Light bulbs don't, in this situation, they don't just turn on. It's a process. Now, like for example, and the worst character I thought was Grace, the teacher, because you know, of course, teachers experience crises of faith from time to time. Everybody does, right? Right? We all have these things. But why does it take her 8 years of marriage before she discusses the matter of having children with her husband? And to make things worse, she's afraid that she's going to give birth to a child that has special needs. And she does, this is what's holding her back. Now, to me, that's not just irrational, it's also immature because she, of all people, should be the best equipped to deal with that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, why is it freaking her out?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I didn't like that. So now that's what I didn't like about this film. But as I said, there is something I did like, and that was little Kalong, Jack Kalong. I loved him so much. He was so cute. But you know, it's interesting as a special needs child himself, you know, in real life, he may still be too young to understand the discrimination that he faces on a daily basis. But what was good is I think that earnestness that he put into his character, it just makes him such a lovable character and a lovable person. This is why I said I wanted to hug him and not let go because he really is a cute kid. So don't get me wrong. I'm happy that a film like this was made because it'll hopefully spur on young filmmakers to tackle this subject. But when they do, I just hope they're going to dig a little deeper and create characters that aren't so one-dimensional. So this is it. So you know what? I don't want to say don't see it because it is an important issue in Hong Kong. It just needed to be meatier. That's my issue. Needed more meat.
Okay.
All right.
And then we turn to Kino.
Yeah, so as I mentioned last week, Kino 18, the German Language Film Festival, it starts tonight at the Hong Kong Arts Center. Not the APA, the Art Center, you know, across the road. And this year, as I said, it's their 18th event. There's going to be 10 new and award-winning films from Germany and Switzerland. This year they have a couple films from Switzerland. They also have some other ancillary events. They have a director here who's here for a few months. He's teaching a couple master classes. I took him last night to see A Star Is Born. His name is Uli Galke. Maybe I'll get him on the show because he's here for a few months.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I'll talk to him tonight. So he's a very nice fellow. So as I said, it starts tonight, and the film that's opening tonight is called The Silent Revolution. I reviewed it last week, so if you didn't hear me, go into the Hong Kong RTHK archive. Mm-hmm. Or my Facebook page, Morning Call, and check it out. Or if you want to see me, go onto my Facebook page. Right. So today I'm going to talk about another film that's playing. It's called 303 or 303, and this is a road trip. This is a film. It's about the road to self-discovery. And the story is that Jewel, that's a woman, Jewel and Jan, I got Jewel and Jan, I don't know, my German's lousy. They're both 24 years old and they're both at university in Berlin. She's studying biology and he's studying political science. Now it's the end of the school year and neither one of them has had a good finish because Jewel failed her biochemistry oral exam and Jan missed out on a scholarship that he badly needed. And to add to their woes, she found out that she's pregnant from her boyfriend who now lives in Portugal. And he recently heard from his birth father, somebody who was never in his life until very recently. And his birth father is a shipbuilder in Spain. So the two of them, they don't know each other at this point. They decide they're going to head west and confront these two people, deal with these two issues. At a gas station in Berlin, so as a fact, where the 303 comes from is she owns a vintage 303-inch, which approximately is 25 feet. It's a 303-inch Mercedes, it's another word, 5-letter word beginning with H, but it's Mercedes camper van, or as we say in North America, trailer. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay. You know, the British say camper van, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where the title comes from. It's 303 inches long. So she's got one of these. She decides to pack up the camper van and hit the road. And it's at a gas station in Berlin where Jan is looking for a ride. And he comes up to her and asks if she'd give him a ride to, first he wants to go to Cologne and he'll catch the train from Cologne. But as it turns out, they end up going all the way to Spain and then Portugal. Now, in the beginning, the pair, their relationship hits a speed bump because Jan's opinions and his ideas clash with those of Jules. She's quite the idealist and he's quite the pragmatist. But in fact, it's pragmatism that keeps them together. And throughout the film, they very eagerly engage in philosophical discussions about life and love and relationships. Sometimes a little bit too much, in fact. I think the film could have used a couple bits of editing there as they make their way west. But really what it is their talks are a smokescreen that mask both their inner feelings as they head closer to their final destination. And that's when they begin to let their guards down and say what's really in their hearts, not just on their minds. My nose is running. Yeah, we're talking about runny noses before we came on air, and my nose is running.
I suffer from the same.
Yeah, you've jinxed me. Now, the film is reminiscent of the Before Sunrise trilogy. Remember the Ethan Hawke, what's her name, Julie Delpy trilogy? Oh, you should watch it. This is about a couple where I'm trying to remember what happens. They meet on a train and they end up talking all night. So this is about philosophy. So this is very similar to that. But you know, it paints an interesting picture of contemporary life of young middle-class Germans who may be more concerned with the social habits of the Cro-Magnon, you know, the cavemen, rather than racism, mass migration, and the rise of the far right in Europe. But okay, it's a film. I won't belabor that point. But unlike the Before Sunrise trilogy, this is a movie about a road trip. And like all road trips, it involves characters stripping away their facades and getting to know themselves better. Now, to the film's credit, these two actors, her name is Mala Emde, and his is Anton Speaker. I don't know either of them. I think they're both TV actors in Germany. They have wonderful chemistry together. And as I was watching this film, I was wondering if they're really a couple in real life. And it wouldn't surprise me if they are. I don't know that they are, but it wouldn't surprise me if they are. But they are, it's funny, they play the same age, but they're really 7 years apart in real life. And their back and forth banter and clowning around, it comes off as being very spontaneous. So I don't know how much of the film was scripted and how much was ad lib, but it really comes across as real, which I appreciated that. Now, as I said, the director, this film actually was a little bit longer. It was about 2 hours and 45 minutes when it premiered at the Berlinale earlier this year, and then he cut it down to it's just 1 minute short of 2 hours. It needed a little bit more cutting, in my opinion, but you know what? It's okay. It's all right. And what I liked again about this film is the director and the cinematographers. You have two cinematographers. They took every opportunity to film this couple in the soft glow of the afternoon sun. So you know it was shot really well. And he has blonde hair, and hers is sort of a light brown hair. So you got the afternoon sun on them, you know. So their hair sort of becomes gold, you know. So it's a nice looking film, and of course it's filmed in the very highly picturesque areas of the Loire Valley and the Basque Sea coast. So you know it's a very sensual film. It's not a sexy film. It's a sensual film. And their first kiss that inevitably happens is wonderfully restrained, which is just as the characters are. They're wonderfully restrained. So I appreciated that. So I'd say this is a really good film. It's 303. I'm not sure what day it's playing, but you can check out the Goethe Institute website or just Google Kino 18 Hong Kong and you'll find it all. Festival opens tonight. 7:30. I will be there. If you're there, come say hello.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. See you.
Otherwise.